Spider friends, welcome back here again for another impressions video. And if you couldn't tell from the intro theme song there, this time we're going to be taking a look at Marvel Legends Spider-Man Retro Carded Spider-Man Unlimited action figure. Now, as always, when we do these, we're going to give you our first impressions, our lasting impressions, and our final thoughts on the figure. So let's not waste any time getting into that. Let's swing right on into the action and get to it. Alright, Spider friends, check it out. We are here today with another first impressions of the Marvel Legends Spider-Man Retro Card Spider-Man Unlimited figure. As usual with these figures, I usually try to get two of them because I love opening these, and I have a Spider-Man display set up, or and not just a Spider-Man. Let me back up a second. When it's on a retro card, I'll usually, if I'm getting the figure, I'll usually get two, one to keep hung up on the card and one to keep separate. Not sure if I'm going to do that with this one or not, because I do like this one and I love them on the Spider-Man retro card, but I also, as I was looking at my collection, I was like, oh, there's some I'm missing. I don't have a 2099 and some others that I missed out on over time because at the time I just wasn't able to get them, and now trying to go backwards and get that is almost ridiculous. But anyway, neither here nor there. Let's talk about this figure himself, Spider-Man Unlimited. Really like this figure. I loved the cartoon when it came out. It was intended originally to be a continuation of Spider-Man, the animated series, but kind of took a different spin, and it really didn't fit into continuity anyway because Spider-Man wasn't even on Earth at the time anymore, or at least not on the Earth that he's leaving from to go to Counter Earth because of the whole way that they ended Spider-Man, the animated series. But cool cartoon, cool concept for a suit. It's a nano suit. Almost feel like with the way the colors and the way it's shaped and stuff, it was trying to take off Spider-Man 2099. Like, you know, Batman Beyond became a thing at that point in time where it's the future version of Batman. I think they wanted to do the same thing with Spider-Man, and do Spider-Man 2099, but didn't want to do 2099 and not be Peter Parker, so they went with the route of Spider-Man Unlimited and gave him this different suit. It looks very similar to the 2099, especially the cape part of it. But anyway, pretty cool figure. Packaging is always as nice, so let's take a look at it. Ooh, almost knocked the camera over there, folks. Sorry, earthquake. No, just me. But let's check it out. The artwork here, maybe this is the one thing that stands out to me in the figure. A couple things, actually. And let's get into that in a second. But let's check out the card as always. It's the Spider-Man animated card. Not really a side view. The back of the card shows the rest of this wave. I know a lot of other people who were really going in for Kane and wanted him because of the 90s Clone Saga. I like it. I just didn't go in for it right now. I as much as I want to put him in my Spider-Man display because I have a Spider-Man, just him in different outfits sort of thing, and Kane and Scarlet Spider fit in there. I for whatever reason, I like Kane and Scarlet Spider better when he became a Scarlet Spider versus this version of him. But I kind of do want to get it put up there. But I also said, hey, I'm kind of curbing some of my collecting to focus on certain ones, and I'm only going to pick certain things. And so when I looked at it and I had both of these on my order list, I said, okay, because of what I'm doing now, I don't have the space. Nix this one because I got to keep this one. But anyway, back of the card shows the rest of the wave. Everything looks cool. Let's get back to the figure. So, what do I think impression-wise of the figure? I think it's going to be good. It's going to fit on the Spider-Man shelf pretty well. I do see the butterfly joints on the figure, so I think he's going to have some posability. He's got the ab crunch. What I'm more concerned about is he doesn't have that diaphragm cut and then the ab crunch, so you're going to lose some posability compared to some of the later Spider-Man, especially like the Beyond one and stuff like that, where he had that stuff and he was able to get into even crazier poses. So I think you'll be able to pose him out, because Marvel Legends usually always poses out pretty well and stuff, but not quite to the same extent as some others. Now, a couple other complaints I have to put into place with this figure. Now, this is an individual, very copy made very type thing, but mine. Okay, so let me back up. I pre-ordered these, two of them, and then I decided, because I saw them in Target, and I was like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and get this one that I see in Target today because he was here much earlier. I canceled my two pre-order because on Hasbro you can't cancel just part of a pre-order, you got to cancel the whole thing. So I canceled the whole thing and said, if I decide I'm going to keep him on the card, because this one I'm going to be opening, if I decide to keep him on the card, I can go back and get him on Amazon, a few other places where he's still available, and I have points from travel and rewards, so I might get another one for free, so that might be what I do. But this one of the reasons I decided this is definitely one I'm going to open is, look at the boot here. Whoever put him in the packaging, the foot was poked out, and now this is out. This whole thing's about to pop out of joint. So I'm going to do this video, then I'm going to have to wait a whole week because I'm leaving town tomorrow for work. But I'm going to have to wait a week before I even open them and then go put them on shelves and pose them out because I don't have time today. But I can't leave it in here too long because I'm so scared of how bad that's already warped and how it's going to get worse. So I'm going to have to open them, take them out of the package, but I'm not going to be able to get them on the shelf. I'm just getting them out of here because of this whole damaged piece right here. I don't think it's too damaged. I can't fix it. I'm going to have to do something with it. Other stuff about the figure, the gauntlets are cool. I like how these parts are ribbed down here. Looks like some of it's ribbed like the spider and then some of it's just painted on. I won't really know until I get to touch it tactile, but from what I can see, yeah, well, maybe some of that is and some of it. So like the legs is not, but it looks like everything in the arms and upper body is ribbed and the boots are. So that's cool to see, but also it's like, why didn't you give it some texture down there too? Now, here's my other major gripe with this figure, and this is a gripe with the entire figure, not just my copy like the boot. Look at this. This is straight off that animated cell for the show. Look at the cell shading they did. His blue is not just dark blue like it is over here. It's got blue that's so dark that it's almost black. It's like the shadows are blending into it. The face. Easy example. Where's all the black that goes on this face? This is an example of why most of the time I don't care for the cell shading too much. I don't dislike it. I don't like it either. It's just kind of eh. This is a case of if you had cell shaded I can't speak today apparently. If you had cell shaded this figure, it would have been so much better because it would have looked like this versus this. While this is not bad, better. Which one's good? Number one, number two. Number one. Now, which one's better? Number one, number two. Number two, number one. Number one's still better. Yeah, eye doctor thing. If you guys wear glasses, you know what I'm talking about. So, I'm going to say that I think once I open this, I'm going to enjoy it and like it because it's Spider-Man and he looks cool and he fits on my shelf. And I did like this cartoon and this suit. But there is something about it to me right now that's kind of off-putting because I want the cell shaded color. Is that going to make me end up being a not recommend with this? Right now, I don't think so, because I think it'll still be good. But what's going to have to save it's going to be the posability and my ability to fix that foot. After that, then we can decide if it's really a recommend or not. As of right now, yes, maybe. Would have been better if he looked like this, but we'll find out better once we get it open. So why don't we do that? I'm going to crack this open, get it out, let it breathe, get that foot fixed up, maybe heat it up a little bit and in place. And then when I come back in town from a week from now, I'm going to get him set up on the shelf. And before I leave town again at the end of that weekend, because yes, I do have that much travel scheduled already, then we'll do the lasting impressions video. So let's give it a little time and we'll be back, guys. Welcome back, amazing friends. We are here with lasting impressions of the Marvel Legends retro carded Spider-Man Unlimited figure. Now, a lot of this stuff we already discussed in the opening video or the first impressions. I do want to call out a couple things here as we're looking at this. First of all, one of the big call outs, well, let me back up. I got two call outs here. Two things. Number one, the gauntlets are really cool, but you have to be careful. This is not a bad or a positive by either means. This is just a be careful when you're swapping hands out if you swap the hands out because the gauntlets don't like to stay in place or go back on there, and you have to work with them a little bit when you get them out of the package to get them in the right shape because they've been a little warped by being in the package. You can still even see it some on that one where it's sliding over and the leg should be going the opposite direction. But hey, it's about as close as you can get to put those on there with them actually being in a good way. And also, this was an individual copy made very thing, but mine, I told you I picked this up in the store, even though I had it pre-ordered. I saw it, so I went ahead and picked it up, canceled the pre-order. And then the one I picked up in the store, the way it was packaged, the boot was kind of starting to separate. The joint where the boot meets the rest of the leg was starting to separate, and I had to take it out of the package. And I was leaving town at the time, so I kind of rushed to do that and just get out of the package, heat it up, put it on the desk. And when I say leaving at the time, it was the next day, but still had a lot to do that day. So I did do that. I let him sit on the desk for about a week while I was out of town. The leg shaped up a little bit better, but you can still see a little bit of separation there. And when I go to move the knee joint, if I put any pressure on the boot, it starts to separate more. So if your copy has that same problem, please just be on the lookout for that. But I don't think that should take away from the entire figure because that's more of my experience with it and not everything. So let's talk about the entire figure. So You know, Spider-Man gets called a lot of things: amazing, spectacular, uncanny, fantastic when he was with the FF. This version is called Spider-Man Unlimited. So, is he really unlimited? Well, I'm going to have to say the answer is probably no. There are some limitations here. Now, do you want to know if he's great, amazing, uncanny, all that? You're going to have to stick around for final thoughts to find that part out. But let's talk about the things here that make him a little less unlimited and a little more limited. Well, it's not all bad, okay? But let's start off with the bad. There are some articulation points that could have been better. As we talked about, this Spider-Man does not have a diaphragm cut. He's got an old style, just ab crunch on the body, which takes away from some of that. The head, I don't know why, because some of these other Spider-Man could look up much better, and Angel could look completely straight up from standing up. Why they didn't put that kind of joint on the neck. So the position I have him in is not where exactly how I wanted to pose him. So I was a little bit limited on the articulation because I wanted to pose him crouching a little more, but I couldn't get the head to look up. He would be looking straight down. And I was like, well, that doesn't work. So kind of had to put him at this angle. And also I hid him behind another Spider-Man to kind of hide the boot point, but that's a whole different subject. So as we're talking about him, let's back up a sec. Looks good on the shelf. Looks great with the team. Does work in this display. But one of the problems with this figure, and I talked about it when we were looking at him in the package and first impressions, they skipped the cell shading. This figure was cell shaded the entire time on that show, and it would have popped more on the shelf here if he'd had that. I think it would have made him, right now he just kind of blends in, if you notice. But if they'd have done the cell shading, he would have popped more. There would have been more color. There would have been some crazy shading and shadowing going on. And that would have made him stand out more. As it is, he's just kind of there. So when we talk about all those adjectives for Spider-Man, what adjective would I use? Well, in this terms, it's just good. I mean, he's good enough. He fits on the shelf. He looks good. He works good. I love the show. So it works, but it's not great. Is it bad? No, not by any means. It's just not to that next level, that upper echelon where it could be, but we're not. Now, let's talk about some other things on the figure that stand out. As I mentioned, the gauntlets, make sure you're careful with those when you're changing hands out and stuff, but those are really cool. The whole look is really cool, and it's a Spider-Man, so you kind of get what you expected, although it moves like a human anatomy should be, so I should stop harping on the articulation aspect, except it's Spider-Man. I expect more articulation. I expect to be able to move him more. So that's where that disappointment comes in. It's not that it's bad, it's just that I expected more, I guess. But I do want to point out a couple of things that we talked on the video that I thought was going to make him stand out more. So with this costume, you see you got all these ridged parts here because it was a nano costume and things stick out. I talked about on the legs just being a different color. And then as I looked at it closer, I was like, well, that actually makes more sense. The boots are ribbed, the chest is ribbed, the shoulders are ribbed, and you've got all that going down to the gauntlet, which is really cool. But what we missed the boat on here, we didn't rib the arm. We didn't change the sculpt, modify the sculpt. We just painted a line on. That's Todd McFarlane level of lazy. Come on now. You put it everywhere else, but you couldn't put it on the arms. It's not going to hinder the articulation, especially if you split it up around the elbow. I would have liked to have seen that done. That's one of those things that, again, is a little bit of a detractor from this figure. Does it mean it's bad? No. We're going to discuss that in final thoughts, what we think fully about this figure. But at the end of the day, once I put him up here and I looked at my Spider-Man setup, I was like, you know what? He works, he fits, he's cool. There's just some detractors that keep him from getting to that next level, or that maybe just keeping him from being spectacular. He's just good enough. There's not a whole lot more to say about it. It's your standard Marvel Legends Spider-Man. Could have been done on one of these others, like one of these other bucks like these where they have the diaphragm cuts as well as the ab crunch, versus just giving me an old school ab crunch because it's still Spider-Man. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's okay. So let's take a trip. Let's swing into final thoughts here and see what happened. What do we think about this figure fully? Okay, we have thwipped on over to our final thoughts on the Marvel Legends Spider-Man Retro Card, the Spider-Man Unlimited figure. Said a lot in both the first and lasting impressions about the figure as to what we thought and how I felt about it. Not a lot of that's really changed. It was nice to get the boot to actually straighten up a little bit after I took him out and I let him sit. And like I said on the last impression, let him sit for about a week, and then when I got home, I came home on a Friday night. I went and posed him up and got him into the position he needed to be into, and then went back and let it sit for a couple of days and recorded the lasting impressions on a Sunday. Now this is coming out a week after that, just because I had to time things and get everything set up and edited here. But just to let you know, it sat there for a good full 2 days before I actually sat down and went through the lasting impressions. And the boot straightened up a little bit while I was gone, but it still wasn't perfect, which that's an individual copies may vary type of thing. I don't think that should put you off from the figure at all, and that's not factored in at all into our recommendations here. And one other note that I'm going to say is not factored into the recommendations is the wrist gauntlets. They're really cool looking. They are going to be misshapen no matter what you do when you get them out of the package. That's just an unfortunate side effect of packaging it in the way in which they did it so that you could have the gauntlet there. Now, if they'd have just painted it on, sure, you wouldn't have had that, but then again, it would just be painted on. Which brings me to one of the points. Let's talk about the things that kind of turned me off to the figure, and then we'll talk about our actual final thoughts, because I'm sure you want to know if it's a recommend or not. But you know, the gauntlets were cool. The repurposed body and how they resculpted is what I should say, not repurposed, but they sculpted onto the body for the spider frame, for the spider shape, and all that stuff was really cool. What was not cool was how they just painted on the arms. Like I said, you could have painted the gauntlet on the hands, but it wouldn't have been as cool. It wouldn't have stood out as much. The other thing that makes this figure not stand out as much is that it doesn't have the cell shading, and that would have really made it pop on the shelf. I feel like with all those other colors on the shelf already, other Spider-Man in similar colors, he just blended in. He just became a part of the crowd, and if it had been different, if he'd have been cell shaded and had that darker shades, and you know, when the light hit it different, it would have shown a little bit different, he would have stood out more, and it would have made him even cooler figure. So he lost a few cool points for that. And then also being on an older body style, and when I say older, he does have the double pinless jointed elbows and knees and stuff, not that, but just the straight ab crunch for a Spider-Man figure, that's really outdated and really I'm trying to find the right word, but really, you know, disappointing for a Spider-Man figure, I guess is the best thing I can say. It just doesn't work. Spider-Man is supposed to be beyond human ability posable. And I've got him into a nice little posed position, which isn't terrible, but at the same time, I had to do it a certain way so that he could look up, because the head doesn't look up any further than what it does. On some of these others, they look up very far, like the Angel figure, for example, that Marvel did. Can look all the way up, and some of those other Spider-Man you saw on the shelf, Spider-Man Beyond can do the same thing. But Spider-Man Unlimited couldn't, so he may have been titled Unlimited, but there were ways in which he was limited. Now, as always, we're going to give you our recommend or not. So, was Spider-Man bad? Spider-Man Unlimited, was he bad? Absolutely not. Was he great? No. Was he amazing? No, you didn't get there. Was he spectacular? Can't say that. What he was good enough. He was good enough for that figure, for and almost a throwaway cartoon that, you know, it lasted one season and they just wanted to do one more suit for Spider-Man and put it out there. Great, cool, I'm all for that. I'm a Spider-Man fan, I'd like to have it. So he was good enough for what he was there. Putting him on the shelf, he worked, he looked good, he fit in. Maybe a little too much. I would have liked him to stand out a little bit more because I was a fan of that show. But at the end of the day, I have to say that he was good enough to be a recommend. He caught me up in his web and said, hey, pick me up, buy me, put me on your shelf. And I think for any of you who are interested in getting him, you wouldn't go wrong with getting him, especially if you're a Spider-Man fan. It's another outfit, another cool look for Spider-Man to put on your shelf. That's awesome. If you're not necessarily a Spider-Man fan, but you were a fan of that cartoon, it's a good representation of it. Could have used some cell shading, but not bad by any means. And if you're a fan of just Marvel Legends in general, you can't go wrong with them. So, as I said, he is worth getting. He is worth the price of admission to pick this figure up and put him on your shelf. Now, would I say go out of your way and pay a secondary market price if he sells out and get him? Probably not. But up front, if you go ahead and get him now, and there's plenty of options too. He's still available on Amazon, still available on Target. I haven't looked on Hasbro Pulse. He's probably available on theirs, probably available on Big Bad. So all these places that you can pick him up, he's there and you can get him. And he is worth the price of that admission. So I would definitely say if you want him, if you want another Spider-Man for yourself, get him. If you don't need another Spider-Man and you don't care about that show, you're not going to miss anything by missing him. But as I said, at the end of the day, it is a recommendation for us. So hopefully that helps tingle your Spidey sense in one direction or another if you're interested in getting this figure and you weren't sure what you wanted to do. With that being said, we hope you enjoyed this, and if you enjoy any of our other content on Stay Weird Network, please like and subscribe. And if you want to check out any of our other shows, you can find us on Big Rob, you can find on Big Rob's House of Entertainment and No Chinese Food. You can find Mr. Chris Daly on his podcast Fueled by Weird wherever you find your podcast. And on the Nerdy Man Room channel, you can find myself and Hassel on the Nerdy Man Room Show and Hassel on Hassel's Reviews. Thanks for watching, and join us here next time for some more impressions.